This session is called Surfacing and Harvesting Low-Hanging Fruit. So kind of that sales focus on using Full Circle and other things in Salesforce. My name is Ron Arbel. I do revenue operations at Full Circle. This is largely focused on the sales operations piece as well. And really, I'm interested in kind of how we're using Salesforce and how we can make it better.
My name is Matt Giordano. I lead the sales development team at Full Circle, helping support the sales development team, but also making sure we're aligned with account executive and marketing teams. So I guess probably the best spot to start is really kind of define what we mean by low-hanging fruit. And we think of low-hanging fruit as kind of a business opportunity that really hits 3 checkboxes. The first is something that can be high yield. So you want to walk away with a profit from a program like this. The second is low effort. And what we mean by this isn't necessarily the time it takes to implement and the effort to get there, but really kind of the upkeep just to get it going or just once it's up and running. Lastly, we want this to be a recurring program. So not something you want to run once, but something you do daily, weekly, quarterly, kind of what have you. So for the sake of time, we're just going to focus on 4 programs, and those are leveraging lead and contact statuses to make sure nothing kind of falls through the cracks, building out a sales nurture program and process, leveraging personas really to get tailored sales messaging, and we'll finish out by talking about operationalizing an upsell program. So let's start with lead and contact statuses. Obviously, this is a fairly simple idea. Everyone in the room is probably familiar with, especially if you're Full Circle users. But it's the idea of putting statuses on both the lead and contact objects. As you'll see, this really kind of provides the backbone for a lot more mature programs, but they themselves actually represent a very easy kind of low-hanging fruit opportunity. So what they do is allow us to never miss an MQL. So once your sales teams, both account executives and sales development teams are trained, you'll be able to align the 2 teams, which will in turn, of course, be in line with marketing. So you can see and make sure that all MQLs on both the SDR front and the account executive front are followed up with care. The second thing, since we're going to shine visibility on this process, is we're going to hopefully improve velocity. We know time can kill deals, so we want to reach out as quickly and as appropriately as possible. So the challenges facing us is really kind of bringing visibility to the SDRs. It's hard to report across these 2 objects, but we want to make sure we look at them and follow up with them. Secondly, we want to kind of manage account executives' workload. Obviously, following up with MQLs isn't necessarily the primary part of account executive jobs. They're working on closing business, and we want them to close business, but leads inevitably come to them if it's an open opportunity, target account, what have you. So we want to find a way to still go after their MQLs, but manage their workload. So here's what we have built out. This is a highly simplified version of our SDR dashboard, and those of you who were in the last session kind of saw a glimpse of this as well. But acts as home base for all of the SDRs. So we can see as a sales development manager, I can look and see kind of on the right, A, we have the Golden State Warriors players as SDRs, but B, most of them are kind of following up and have a manageable volume here, except for Draymond, who is 18, which seems to be kind of a high outlier. This would be a time for me to reach out, check in, and see kind of what's going on there. But this kind of has an air of publicity, and that really gives us 2 things. One, it allows our SDRs to kind of instantly see their progress, right? So if they start working these, they can go in, refresh the page, kind of see the progress instantaneously. But it also plays on the fact that sales people are just kind of naturally competitive. Right? This is going to harness my SDRs to kind of better themselves in comparison to their peers. So kind of how we do this on the account executive front may be a little bit more interesting. On the far left is kind of the same component showing account executives' unworked MQLs broken down by account executive. So we see Federer here has the most, but when we analyze the middle piece, which simply just looks at the number of opportunities account executive are working, it makes sense. He's working about 10 to 15 more deals than everyone else, and we want him working on this. So this is something I would personally, check once or twice a week, check in with Federer. Maybe we want to push these to SDRs, have them follow up, have him focus here. So ultimately, the goal is simply just to align our account executive and SDR teams to make sure we don't lose out on leads.
Cool. The second program that we want to touch on here is building out a sales nurture program. So what is sales nurture? Very simply, it's the automated outbound effort done by your sales reps every month. And this is a really great source of business. The reason being that you already have a database that's full of names. This is wonderful because one, it's free. You don't have to spend any money to go take a look at it. And two, usually they have some sort of history with your company, right? Because you added them in the first place, they were an inbound response. And so that conversation is going to be a little bit warmer. The second is the fact that it's a low time investment per rep. And this is because we're pulling out a lead list, we're splitting it up, giving it to our SDR team. They start firing off this sales cadence and they don't have to put a second thought into it. Anyone who responds, they just harvest that response and try to work the deal moving forward. Now for us, this was wonderful, and as a bit of a backstory, sales was responsible for hitting our own number, and so we would do a lot of sales nurture. Now, as we started closing more business, we had more and more customers to try to suppress from these lists and open opportunities we didn't want to be contacting. And this started to become a time suck. For every new sales development rep that we added, if we give them a list, they'd have to spend a lot of time manually trying to take out current customers. For every rep we added, it was more time, and it would just keep compounding. It was also subject to human error because you're doing this visually, and so inevitably we would be contacting a current customer or an open opportunity and being embarrassing, or we'd kind of hurt that deal. The second challenge was, as we started developing territories, AEs were in specific kind of patches. We want our SDRs to align with it. How do we deal with the lead object, right? The lead having very limited information when it comes to headquarters. So to kind of bring that time value back in place, for us the solution was Matchmaker. Matchmaker is a full circle product. It has a ton of functionality, but very simply it's lead to account matching. So your marketing team can use it for attribution, but for us, by being native in Salesforce, it actually powers a lot of our reporting. What we're looking at here is a joined report in Salesforce between your leads and contacts. On the left is kind of a typical contact and account report, as you would see it. But in this case, with Matchmaker in place, we're able to run an additional report that shows all of our leads, and we're grouping holistically by account. So this becomes very powerful. We can see kind of the distribution across both objects by account, but by being native to Salesforce, we can start adding kind of very basic filters in place. The first ones that we did that we care about were things like type not equal to customer, competitor, or partner. Being able to filter out things like open opportunity is equal to 0. And now in literally the click of a button, I have a perfectly clean list that uses fuzzy matching based on Matchmaker as a product to pull out all of these names very, very accurately. What became nice is now that time investment just went all the way down to 0 on a monthly basis, but we can start taking this further because we now have account level information across our lead object. So the first thing we did was segment by territories, but we started realizing, okay, obviously we can also look at things like industry, target certain technology stacks or create messaging for certain company sizes. So this was kind of that first step in building out a sales nurture program that again didn't take time, but as we moved forward, started becoming a lot more specific and granular with our messaging. Sales nurture started for us at about 5% of our opportunity pipeline, and now it's up to about 12.5%.
So next program we want to look at is personas. So what do I mean by personas? It's really kind of a segmentation of people into different groups. And we do this really kind of in two fields that are job level and job function. So a C-level person versus manager versus analyst, as well as for job function, kind of what role they play and what department they kind of fill inside their company. So to build these out, we actually looked at previous closed won opportunities and saw kind of what players were involved and what were the typical prospects we saw. However, what we build out is best for us, and I just kind of want to enforce that every business is different, so these would maybe look different for you guys. You just really kind of want to focus on who you really market and sell to. But the value behind personas is actually pretty simple. What you can do is flag at-risk opportunities. So these are the opportunities that are in the limbo between a commit stage and kind of an early stage. And what you do is actually analyze the demand units and see kind of which players are missing, if at all. And if they are, of course, we'll be able to flag it, let the account executive know, have them kind of follow up accordingly. The second thing personas do is allow us to have a more targeted sales outreach. We all know that targeted messaging leads to higher open rates, response rate, clicks rates, you name it. So personas allow us to do this across kind of a wide variety of sales activities. And we'll look at some of these in a minute. But the big challenge with personas, as was kind of mentioned in the last session, is the large variation across titles. This was largely a result of just kind of the way we got leads over a number of years. If they come in through form fills, that's a medium where they get to enter their own title. If we prospected them from a tool or from LinkedIn, again, they get to choose their own title and they have a different convention. Even different data providers have different conventions for their names. So you really just have this large just variety of titles. So how do you bucket accordingly? So just as an example, I pulled 5 titles from LinkedIn. If we focus on the top left, Corinne is an operations stream, Chief Marketing Officer. Simple, it's easy to put Corinne into the C-level persona, and then we have a VP, kind of head of marketing job function that she neatly fits into. However, these other 4 are still people we at Full Circle want to go after, but really kind of illustrate the fact it's not possible just to collect just a massive list of all titles you could run into. So a little background on myself, I have a master's in statistics, so I knew kind of the problem was going to have to be solved using a code. So essentially what I built out allows you to kind of pick up keywords in people's titles and bucket them accordingly. And the result looks like that. Every person, regardless of title, has a job level, job function associated with them, and it works across a wide variety of titles, departments, as you can see. So what can we do with this information now that we have it inside Salesforce? This is showing an opportunity kind of report. And it's hypothetically pulled at the beginning of the year, and it's just breaking it down to when we think these deals will close. Blue represents a very early stage deal. Orange represents committed, where we want to get it. But green's really where we can make our impact. These are the deals that are kind of stuck for whatever reason. So these are the deals we run an opportunity report and see if they're missing a director level or higher. We actually looked, Ron and I looked at deals in a given year, and we saw that only 4 had closed without director level or higher approval. We can take this to mean we're just going to need that sort of executive buy-in at some point. So if one of these opportunities is missing the field, we flag the AE. On the SDR front, a little bit simpler actually. There's really kind of 3 programs you can run. The first of which Ron already touched upon, but it's nurture. So now when you nurture, you can actually segment and put people on different tracks. Even at a basic level, you can just do marketing versus sales messaging and tailor accordingly. The other thing, and hopefully what this is showing, is actually a call blast design. So what I did is just ran a simple report, pulling obviously marketing ops and manager level people, and of course filtered for phone numbers. It takes me a minute to run, but I get a large list of people my SDR team can reach out to. Lastly, and what we think this is going to really help with new hires, is help them kind of assimilate faster. We anticipate that every new hire is going to run into a title they haven't seen, they don't really know how to talk to. This is when job level, job function are easy. If they don't know how to talk to the title, then at least they know how to talk to a manager level marketing ops person. Ultimately, these personas are going to be used across your account development SDR team, and obviously marketing are going to use these as well, but for the sake of time, we just kept it to sales right here.
All right, and the last program that we want to touch on here is product upsell. So the kind of value is very intuitive. We looked at our upsell opportunities and saw that they had a much better velocity towards close, and we know time is a big killer of deals, so they had a much better conversion rate. Now, the reasons for it were pretty intuitive. Starting the conversation with a current customer is a lot easier. You don't spend as much time at the top of the funnel trying to prospect someone. But our conversion rate was also significantly better, and one of the reasons was, it's somewhat of an easier sell. You have trust that's already established because they're using your product. Having everything fit together is, one less barrier to try to jump over. And so we really wanted to focus on how can we, improve our upsell strategy. Now, one of the challenges that we were faced is, from an operational standpoint, making sure that we had a game plan for every single one of our customers. And we kind of boiled things down and realized that there's 4 reasons why someone wouldn't have one of our products. How do we make sure that every one of these customers is put into one of these tracks where we can move them up to product to maturity, if you will? And the second piece was just the timing and accountability aspect. And so, in a way, it's easier to focus on new business, on prospect accounts. It's much cleaner in Salesforce. But again, because of this velocity and conversion rate, we don't want to let money sit on the table if we have the opportunity to upsell. We just need to make sure that account executives are following up at the right time and that they're held accountable. So the way that we did this, very simply, is we added this mashup to the account object. In this case, it's called the product to upsell. And those 4 kind of reasons I mentioned before are listed out there on the left. And these are just reasons why someone wouldn't have product number 2 yet. The first one is an obvious reason. They currently have a competitor. We want to make sure that we're putting in who the competitor is, as well as this dependency field on the right, which is a re-engagement date. In this case, it would be when that contract expires, so we can try to challenge it. The second reason is that this account is perfectly qualified for product 2, but timing isn't right. They are hiring a new VP of sales who they want to onboard. They need to wait for budget to clean up or free up at the end of the year. No problem. Again, dependency field for a re-engagement date. The last 2 is just really a readiness piece, and maybe they don't feel the pain yet that product 2 solves. No problem. We just don't want sales to be wasting our time there. And so by selecting this, it actually starts them off on a marketing nurture track. And this keeps them aware of us as a solution, so should they feel the pain, they will come to us. And the last one is a sales bucket, which is that they've been non-responsive to our messaging. And for us, that means that sales is responsible for periodically going out and trying to re-engage that conversation. The last piece is product 2 never a fit. And we try to fill that out as rarely as possible. But this is like an ultimate disqualification. And it's a required field to fill in the reason why. But if systematically they can't support product 2, then we want to check that box and never waste marketing time or sales time on that. This box down here is a simple report that shows accounts missing product 2 upsell information. And it's very easy from an operational standpoint to just go ahead and ask Roger, hey, you still have 7 accounts to fill out. Where the low-hanging fruit really lies is in a dashboard like this. So this is just visualizing that field on all of our accounts in aggregate. So in the top here, we're looking at those list of competitors, but we're actually seeing them listed out. This helps us understand what is the frequency of competitors in our space right now. The competitor 2 actually has is the most challenging company that we're faced against. And in having this in a very easily visible place, we can take action on any competitive information. So should we release a new feature that competes with competitor 3, we can run a report, pull all those accounts, and send targeted messaging about it. The second piece here is on accountability. And on the right, we're just visualizing that re-engagement date as it's arriving. We have an email workflow set up in place that sends an automated email to our AE when that date is approaching, reminding them to go ahead and follow up. And ultimately, this is a centralized place where our management can go and take a look and get an idea of the cadence upcoming of starting this conversation. If I'm the VP of sales and I'm responsible for getting product 2 to have brought X amount of revenue, this is where I'll be looking to help find ways to actually hit that number. And the last kind of piece where it becomes helpful is actually for account executives themselves. As a dashboard component, we just added a filter at the top. I can enter my name, and all of these will just update to show me my accounts, where they stand, and what I can do about it.
So just to quickly recap, we talked through leveraging lead and contact statuses to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. We talked through kind of building out a sales nurture process, as well as leveraging personas to make sure you reach out with targeted messaging. And we finished off with talking through operationalizing and upsell. Before we go ahead and kind of open this up to question, we just want to say we're all juiced. You're able to make it to Circulate this year.
We hope you have a great time in our session.
Hopefully some of these programs pair well with some of your sales processes.
And, well, aren't you glad we didn't run over time? And that's it. Thanks, guys.
Nailed it.
Cool. You want to open the floor to questions?
So you had the status of other products on the account level. Do you have anything on the contact level or individual? Like if they were unresponsive versus the whole account unresponsive?
Yeah, so it's on that level, it's going to be the account level. It's more about what we understand about them as a business. So it's really looking at how far are we into having them aware of our product. If any contact is responding, we have information that says, okay, they're hiring a new VP of sales, that applies across the entire account.
Yep.
Kudos on the job function, job level. We found that to be really, really valuable. Did you ever consider having purchase responsibility as kind of the third piece of that to make sure you understood kind of at what level the decision making was being made?
Yeah, we actually use that kind of crossed against our contact roles. So in standard Salesforce, you can fill out things like decision maker or influencer. And so we'll try to look across those two to see trends between what job level tends to be the decision maker or an influencer. Out of curiosity, how did you use personas that was so fruitful or good for you? I didn't even mean to do that.
I'm used to hearing them now.
in challenges all the time. I was at Visa, and so we were on the B2B side, and we were using them to try and define e-commerce payment purchase decision makers, which in the digital space can go everything from a head of retail to a IT director buried in an operational one. And so we found that helping map that just kept us focused on who were influencers to that process, so it fed exactly into what you were talking about. But we felt it was very important to ultimately say, was someone just an approver or an influencer or the ultimate decision maker, even if they were at a fairly operational level for us. So I was curious how you were mapping it into that.
Did you use the contract role, like the standard Salesforce options that they give?
We did some of that. Visa wasn't a huge Salesforce company at the time when I was there.
Okay.
So
Sure.
the part, we had it in our group.
Cool.
So we were rolling it out when it was early in the process. So we used it in different places, I guess, is a better answer.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Other questions?
In the back, I saw your hand first. You had it.
How does your text analysis handle new leads? Like, how does it, I mean, are you constantly uploading new lists, or do you have that built into Salesforce somehow?
So we kind of did a kind of data cleanse. Once I got this program kind of up and running, kind of pulled out the data and just did a mass kind of cleanse and then re-imported and kind of updated the fields. But I kind of built it out in RStudio, which is just kind of a platform for code. And then when we go ahead and pull new lists, we first run it through the program, and it's something that's pretty simple to do once it's up. I taught everyone on my team how to do it, so I don't have to do it every time, and it takes 30 seconds to run, and then from there we're able to, when we push the new leads in as new names, they go in with that field, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I would love to get to a place where it's done in Salesforce automatically.
Yep.
There's some concerns there around just CPU usage. So if you're uploading a massive list and then it has to start firing off, through the process builder just to go do that, that would be the ultimate direction. And who knows, maybe that would become a product.
Yeah.
What package did you use in R?
I don't know if it was anything. I didn't have to download any kind of new packages. I know there's all sorts of kind of statistical and mathematical packages.
You wrote it from scratch.
Yeah, I wrote it from scratch using like grepl. And some of the other ones, I don't remember off the top of my head, but mostly those functions.
We're running low on time. You in the front had one more question?
Yeah, we're just kind of getting started with football. And just getting through all the data and reports and stuff. The one you had that was like for Circulate unworked MQLs and AE.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a package that comes with Full Circle, or did you guys build that out yourselves?
This one?
Yeah.
All of this is going to be standard stuff. Yeah, This is what we've done is we've kind of modified it just for our team internally. So we have two different dashboards, one for AEs and one for SDRs that they can kind of live in as home base. But a lot of these are actually duplicated. So I have an operations dashboard that pull sections of the other dashboards. So in my place, I can see what they're seeing at the same time. Right now, when we have kind of AE unworked MQLs, we're looking at it kind of manually and visually. If there's someone who's been there for a long time, we'll do something about it. We're considering moving towards having it automated, where if there wasn't follow-up within an agreed upon SLA of 2 days or 3 days, it'll just get routed to an SDR immediately. But we want AEs to kind of sign off on that before we steal it from them.
And once we have a little more free time after Circulate.
Cool. If we have one more question, we can maybe squeeze it in. Yeah.
Are
do you guys handle like AEs or like outside reps not updating statuses and that affecting your velocity and picking random response and not doing what they should?
Oh my God, yes.
I've been using your software for years. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, first and foremost, it's a required field. So, if we want to activate any funnel, you're going to have to do it via the lead to contact status. You know, we need to have a campaign associated with any engagement to begin with, and that's actually how we fuel any sort of campaign attribution moving forward. Besides that, I mean, honestly, I think we just have really good training.
Yeah,
on
that was
what,
gonna be my answer.
Right, like what the fields mean. It's very transparent.
Yeah, I guess a better question would be how do you police it, right? So if anyone can just pick a response prompt and pick a random status and go from there.
Yeah.
So how do you, and that will produce data.
Yeah.
So then how are you guys going about an efficient manner of saying, okay, well, we have all this data and it's here and it's right, but it's not accurate.
So I think the first piece is having a clean system in place where people are incentivized to do the right thing because it is easier to begin with. So if you have too many funnel stages, for example, you'll end up bogging down your own workload. It's going to be hard to train anyone on that to begin with. There's there's answers for that for every stage. I think one of the easy ones, for example, is progressing like an opportunity to sales accepted. SDRs they get basically quota relief when opportunities have progressed to a certain stage. So they're incentivized to follow up with the AE and say, hey, like it's the end of the month, like how many of these have progressed? And the A's are very good about going ahead and doing it. The second one is actually kind of in the meeting or the session we ran right before. So myself and Rochelle, the other operations person, we daily, constantly have funnel metrics in place where we see who's at what stage of the funnel. We have meetings with management, and if we see that someone's stuck at a certain stage, management manages, and they go tell people to do something about it. That's how we do it. And that's the time we have. Thank you so much, guys.